We're really grateful tonight to have Jay Evans join us, and he's a very good mate of mine, and I run workshops with Jay, and he's here tonight to talk about the Blue Mountains and also the Wollemi area. And I guess when it comes to that, there's actually quite a few other areas as well that make up the Greater Blue Mountains, I guess, World Heritage Area. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and maybe also what's happened in terms of the fire damage in those areas, and what are also the great places to see and shoot, and Jay's favourite places in the Blue Mountains as well. So welcome, Jay, and thanks so much for joining us tonight, mate.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks to you all to having me back once again. I couldn't have done too bad a job last time when we talked about Astro.
Absolutely. No, we had a great time that time. So you actually live in Katoomba, don't you? So you're right in the middle of smack bang in the middle of the mountains there.
I am, yes, yeah. Look, lucky enough. We're talking about it a lot at the moment because it's actually the 20th anniversary of the Blue Mountains getting its World Heritage status in 2020. So besides all the other things that have happened, fires, floods, pandemic, we're actually celebrating something up here, so which is really good. And I'm blessed to be able to live only 20-minute walk away from the Three Sisters, in terms of just being able to walk down the road first thing in the morning, get to capture some great sunrises over the top of the Three Sisters there. So very lucky to be living in Katoomba.
Absolutely. And I believe you guys even had a little bit of snow the other day.
Yeah, that was fun. So not so much here in Katoomba. We had a few little flurries, not as much as we actually had in Katoomba last year. But I do have
because
some.
You actually had snow at the Three Sisters, didn't you?
Yeah, well, last year was better, and I've got some videos and some shots of that to go through tonight as well.
Oh, awesome!
Show some different conditions that we might.
Do you know if that when the last time that actually happened?
So we had the snow just this past weekend. Again, in Katoomba, not so much, but up in Blackheath, further up, we had quite a lot. And then further over the mountain, obviously over in Jenolan and all the way out to Oberon, it's still snowing out there. There's still a lot of snow at the moment as well. We had the snow, a couple of flurries last year, which you had a fairly big dump in Katoomba on that one particular day, 10th of August last year. Prior to that, it was 4 years ago. And then prior to that was 10 years. So it's given we've now had it 2 years in a row, hopefully good signs for in 5 years' time we'll be snowboarding down in front of the Three Sisters in the middle of winter. So we're all looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's cool. And I guess you run a lot of tours in the Blue Mountains, and obviously the current environment must be a bit of a challenge in terms of people visiting, although now I guess with the restrictions lifting somewhat, people can still check it, like local people can still go up into the mountains, I suppose. So you're finding it getting a little bit busier up there?
Yeah, well, once the restrictions in New South Wales lifted back in beginning of June, things kind of really kicked off. Had a lot of local visitation coming up here. The streets, especially on the weekends, were getting busy. I'm part of a group that we talk about the accommodation and activities and things that are going on here tourism-wise. And all the accommodation providers were saying they were fully booked out for every weekend, running all the way up until September, and now they're fully booked out all the way through until October. Oh, wow. It's died down a little bit with the second wave and what's happening in Victoria. Things have changed a little bit in that regard, but no, we've been quite lucky here in New South Wales, especially that things have actually worked out quite well in terms of keeping things in check. But obviously, Blue Mountains itself suffers from the majority of tourism is actually overseas tourism. Which we're not looking at having restarting for a very, very long time. So the community here going to be very much impacted in this for probably years to come at the moment. So but yeah, I guess it's good to see every weekend at the moment. The streets are busy. You can't find car parking anywhere, which is what we always used to hate, but it's nice to see the visitors coming back.
So I guess when you used to get into international or even interstate visitors coming into Sydney, they'd always want to do a day trip somewhere or see something a bit more natural, I suppose, than just the city. And so I guess a lot of the visitors would actually go up to the Blue Mountains for a kind of a day trip.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what where you're really losing a lot of that tourist flow, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's always been known. The Three Sisters is the third most visited tourist attraction in Australia, behind Sydney Opera House and Uluru. So, so we're very lucky to kind of have that on the mantle. But yeah, obviously suffering quite a lot at the moment, not having that overseas tourism.
Mm. And you also work at a very, I guess, famous in the Blue Mountains, tourist attraction yourself, and in terms of scenic world, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some people who are on the conference will know that. Yeah, we Scenic World Blue Mountains, a privately owned attraction, but Australia's most visited privately owned attraction, run by the same family, or owned by the same family since 1945, the Hamner family, who also now run have a large share with Sydney Zoo, or the new Sydney Zoo in Western Sydney, and also now run the bridge climb. So obviously all those tourist business impacted by pandemic, but working at Scenic World, yeah, the world's steepest railway, also the steepest cable car, enclosed cable car in the Southern Hemisphere, and also the highest single span cable car in Australia on the Skyway, so which has actually been running back and forth across the top of the valley since 1954, the Queen's Jubilee. So give you an idea of how long that's been going for.
Must be one of the longest running as well, and you would think.
Yes, yeah. I mean, certainly the Scenic Railway, started out as a mining railway. I'll cover some of this off when we talk about image later, but it's the world's steepest railway. We do have the Guinness Book of Records plaque in the reception area as you walk on through. That's been running since 1945. And prior to that, it was a coal train bringing up from the coal mines that were in the valley, bringing coal up. And the reason it became a tourist attraction was because the miners at the time decided to earn a few shillings by bringing bushwalkers up out of the valley in the coal carts. So they used to put blankets down on in the coal buckets to bring bushwalkers out and earn a few extra shillings off the back of it. So, yeah, very again blessed as my history was I've always worked in IT and as a project manager, and when I moved up to the mountains and decided to leave behind the corporate job, I fell into tourism industry and started working with Scenic World, and it's a great thing to be doing up here.
So you've had a bit of a tree change.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Total career change.
Yeah. So we'll get you to throw up some of your images, and we can have a bit of a chat about some of the locations and some of your favorite places, and or we could even start with that map perhaps, and just maybe look at the lay of the land a bit.
Let's start with the map, right? Yep. Everybody loves a map, don't they? Everyone give me a thumbs up. Everybody loves a map.
Everything in perspective, doesn't it? So that'll be really good.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so let me share here, screen 2. I haven't used Zoom for a couple of weeks, so learning how to use it again. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yeah.
So give everybody an idea there. So that's basically it's a map that's taken out of the World Heritage Management Unit up here, and that gives basically that big green area there is the full outline of the Greater Blue Mountains World Heritage Area, starting right up pretty much at the tip of the Hunter Valley. Right down south to just north of Mittagong. So basically 100 kilometers inland of Sydney, and also inland of Newcastle at the top there, at the very top of the Wollemi National Park and Wollemi Wilderness.
What's the length from north to south, Jay? It looks massive.
Yeah, it's 430 kilometers.
Wow. Yeah,
so give you an idea. And in total, the total area of actual protected wilderness, it's over 1 million hectares. So which is obviously why it's so very important. It's a World Heritage listed area. 7 different national parks, 6 different conservation areas throughout there. You probably see all the names in here. Wollemi National Park, obviously home to the Wollemi pine. Blue Mountains National Park, Gardens of Stone, Yengo, Canangra Boyd, and Natai are the actual national parks in there, and lots of conservation areas as well. Each of those parks has its own particular importance in its natural environment and also in its cultural history as well. A lot of different indigenous language groups have populated different parts of the Blue Mountains throughout its history. So it's very, very important to Sydney. And you can also imagine as well, 1 million hectares of trees just west of Sydney and Newcastle. That's doing a lot to store a lot of the carbon. It's doing a lot to provide oxygen, process out carbon dioxide. So basically, it's providing, like some people say, the Amazon does to Brazil and South America. The Blue Mountains is pretty much just considered the lungs of Sydney because it's such a great area of air processing just inland of Sydney and Newcastle. Now, one of the biggest questions I always get asked, especially at the moment, is how much of that area got impacted by fires. Obviously, the Blue Mountains itself was an area, was only one part of New South Wales and, in fact, all of Australia that got impacted by the bushfires. But out of that map that's there, 91% of that area was impacted by the bushfires in December and January. So when you look at the final RFS map of the actual burned areas, there's only a few very small areas in there that were actually left that weren't impacted by those fires. The biggest one being Gospers Mountain, actually started somewhere here I don't know if people can see my mouse in there, but started in the middle of the Wollemi wilderness in here from a lightning strike on October the 26th. And that gradually spread out and that gradually joined a few other fires that started through lightning strikes as well. And pretty much encompassed that entire area north of the Grouse Valley, then through a fairly faulty hazard reduction burn. Then that also burned through the Grouse Valley in the north end of the Blue Mountains here. And at the same time in the south, we had a lot of fires around Lake Burragong, which is Warragamba Dam, burning through the south, through Canangra Boyd, up into the Jenolan Cast area as well. And we also had our own fire near to Katoomba, starting off the back of the ruined castle, which caused a fair amount of devastation across the fronts of Mount Solitary. Ended up actually closing Scenic Will for 5 days due to the fires. First time it's been closed since 1945. So had a significant impact. But yeah, so 91% of that area in total was impacted by those fires. I've got some pictures I'll actually run through in a little while as well, just to show everybody some of the fire activity that we had going on over that period as well. And I'm sure there'll be other people that are on the conference tonight who've probably come from other areas where, especially down south. I don't know if Davey Rogers is on with us tonight, but Davey would have been very much impacted down in the south coast there, and everybody affected up on the north coast, not to mention everybody else around Australia and in Victoria, and you guys down in Tassie as well, who were impacted by the fires through that last season. So pretty devastating. Let me go on to a couple of things here to give you a bit of an idea. Let's talk about some sunrises first of all, a bit of the landscape around here in the Blue Mountains. I'd say, so one of the things, I'll get a good picture up just to show you here. I'll start off with this one. And I'll make that, I can't make it full screen, unfortunately, because that messes with my Zoom sharing screen. I found out last week for some reason. Hopefully everybody can see that. That's that, we call it the World Heritage View. It's the Three Sisters and Mount Solitary over the Jamison Valley. That's a 15-minute walk away from my home here. And that there is the Three Sisters. So you've got sister number 1, 2, and 3, or as we call them up here, Menai, Wimmera, and Gunnedu. The names that they've been given by the Darug and Gundungara people. So those names actually coming from one of their Dreamtime stories. So we talk a lot about the Three Sisters up here because that's the view. That's what everybody comes to Katoomba and comes to the mountains to see. Also a bit further north of us here, everybody probably knows this view as well. So we've got Govetts Leap and the Grouse Valley just on the other side there as well. So all that landscape, and we get some amazing sunrises and sun rays and bursts coming through when there's the right amount of cloud coming over there. You'll see a lot of people now starting to, we're getting those conditions through winter where the sun's just about in the same position right about now, and we get those same rays when we have that kind of day, or we have the sunrise with a little bit of cloud there, and all the rays burst through into the valley. So it makes a beautiful spot to go and photograph. Both those spots very easy to access. They're just normal lookouts. Govetts Leap has a car park right next to it. It's a very easy one to pull up into. which is why it's a very popular spot for a lot of photographers to come to, because it's so easy to get there.
What time of year do you get that really nice sun alignment then?
Now.
Got that in August.
Yeah, so it's actually now. So
Yeah.
look at the date. Yeah, there you go, 2nd of August, 2018.
Yeah.
It was back in the days, you're going to see this at the SC. So back in the days when I was shooting with a C word.
Oh yeah.
So but you know, that's the kind of thing we're seeing. I've seen a few people recently post on Instagram with very similar shots taken over the past couple of weeks, because that alignment's there now, and we're getting those conditions, we're getting those clouds over. Again, give everybody an idea. This tree is actually a very famous tree because it appears in quite a lot of shots from Go and Sleep. I don't have the picture here because I don't want to show anybody else's images, but one of the RFS guys has a photo of the fire creeping across the Grouse Valley, literally starting at the top here on the escarpment, and literally it had fallen into the valley on this side, a huge line of fire running all the way down through the Grouse Valley, and that tree actually ablaze. And that tree is still there today. So we go to a more recent shot of it. We'll find a more recent shot. There we go, here's a more recent one. 31st July. Oh, sorry, I haven't got that tree in there, but it is there. It's still actually hidden in this corner, and that tree is actually recovering. So even though the fire came through and burned it quite significantly, it's actually the tree is still there and it's recovering. But to give you an idea, it's that same set of rays coming through, and that was only back in July, so not so long ago.
Are they have they done a bit of revamp to the lookout at the Three Sisters? I saw some pictures that looked like they were resurfacing it or putting a new viewing deck in or something there.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going on there at the moment. So it is. Let me go back to that one. So this view here, this was called the Queen Elizabeth lookout, Queen Elizabeth II lookout. They've actually built a whole new section that runs all the way around the edge of that, with a new lookout and a new amphitheatre that they can do presentations on.
Oh wow!
And all of that actually looks out over that World Heritage view. So that's due to open in a couple of weeks' time. I actually did my daily walk down there earlier today, and it's all the scaffolding starting to come out, and it's starting to look like it's going back to normal again. So we're quite excited about that. There's a new little bridge from between one lookout and the other, which I'm sure will become quite a popular attraction for people with drones and selfies. So we'll stand by for that one. We'll start seeing the shots of it in a couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure.
And can you walk out to the actual Three Sisters? Like there's a track that or it used to take you out to.
You can, yeah. So the Prince Henry Cliff Walk runs at the top of Echo Point, the lookout. It actually runs around the back here, comes down over the top here, and there's a set of stairs that goes down, and you can probably just about make it out there, that little tiny bridge.
Oh yeah.
Honeymoon Bridge that goes between the cliff and the First Sister. So that's a very popular spot. The stairs down there are a bit of a killer to get down there. But then from there, behind the First Sister, there is the giant stairs that takes you all the way down into the valley floor, onto the Federal Pass, which is one of the more famous walks that you can do down there. So it's okay going down. You have disco leg when you get to the bottom, but coming up,
disco leg,
it's not pretty. everybody who does walks in national parks knows disco leg. We always say, especially when I'm running tours, is welcome to the Blue Mountains. What goes down must come up, because everything.
Yeah, it's a big feature of that area, isn't it? That accessing a lot of the most amazing places requires a lot of up and down walking.
A lot of up and down stairs, yeah. So, and that's the thing here. We often get asked at Scenic World, we take people into the valley on the railway, and they say, so where do we meet our bus? It's like, yeah, you don't meet your bus down here because you're in the valley and there is nothing else down here except trees and wildlife and water. So people don't realize they have to walk, they have to exit the valley via the railway, cable car, or even walk up the further stairs, 951 stairs to get you to the top. That's often a joke we tell people if they've forgotten their ticket for the railway, if they've lost their ticket. The next best thing is 951 stairs to get out.
Brutal.
It's 45 minutes. It's easy. I know some people will also know the Ultra Trail race that happens up here every year. They had to postpone it this year. It should have been in May. It's now going to be on in October. But they have 4 different races: an 11, 22, 50, and 100 kilometer race, which they do the Ultra Trail trail running all around the mountains. They also have a special invite-only race called the UTA 951, and that's the fastest to do the furthest stairs from bottom to top. So 951 stairs all the way to the top. And the guy that won it last year did it in 11 minutes.
Oh,
So, and he reckons he can shave 30 seconds off that this year.
Oh.
So, yeah, there you go. Some crazy people around, including photographers. So give you an idea. So,
I was just going to say, I really love your shot number 4 there. How you got the mist hanging in the valley there.
That little cloud inversion, yeah. So that's another shot over the Gross Valley on the other side. That's at Pulpit Rock.
Okay.
Now Pulpit Rock's still closed, unfortunately. The whole area was badly impacted by the fires back in December. And it's actually a council managed lookout, so it's actually that part's a council reserve, and unfortunately not looking like it's going to be open anytime soon. And it's changed. The fires have really changed the whole ecology of what you can see around there, because the road that used to lead in, you'd never be able to see it from a distance because the trees used to cover it up. Now you can see it from a mile away because the trees are all burnt out all the way over the top there. But yeah, it's a very, very different look. Yeah, one of my favorite shots there, just having that little bit of that cloud inversion snaking on through the valley. Very much a feature of the Gross Valley is actually having that cloud inversion. There's another one there. You can go to sleep. And if you can get the conditions on the right days, then you get that. You will always find that cloud inversion on the cooler days.
Yeah, how do you pick it, Jay? What's the combination of conditions that's quite consistent with that sort of cloud?
Normally very humid nights, relatively warm mornings. So if you can see the temperature in the morning is going to rise, you'll start to see that inversion. Helps if you've had rain a few days prior. Tends to happen more if you've got a clear sky, which is unfortunate. So it's hard to catch it where you've actually got a cloudy sky. You can get some detail. But when you do get it with some cloud in the sky as well, then that's a good shot, because that's quite rare conditions to catch it in. And it's the same on the Jamison Valley, on the Three Sisters side as well. You'll get those cloud inversions in the valley on that side. Hopefully I've got some shots here now. Here's an almost cloud inversion happening here up onto Mount Solitary. It's taken from Spooner's Lookout, and you can kind of see that thin layer where it was almost a cloud inversion happening there. That thin layer of mist that's just kind of hung over the valley. So again, very lucky to catch that on that warming morning with the cloud in the sky, because you wouldn't normally see that. It would normally be a completely clear sky there.
Has Mount Solitary recovered pretty well? Because they had that massive, well, when there was a burn off, but it looked like a mushroom cloud almost that was coming off it at one point. Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is.
There you go. So I actually wasn't here the day that went up. So Mount Solitary, the mountain that's in the middle here, there's the Three Sisters there, and you always see that flat top mountain down the middle, the ruined castle just up on the ridge here. Then you can see it's on fire with smoke. That's Aurora as well. So I would have had a few shots of that to do a stack. I was trying to catch the Milky Way over the top of the fire. So that was actually a burn off. They basically said we have 65 years of fuel that needs to be burned off, because they hadn't had a fire there for a while. So they circled it in helicopters and dropped fire bombs on top of it and let it burn down. The unfortunate thing about that is, let me see if we've got the shot here. Probably actually don't. But that whole part, let me go back to the sunrise shots and you'll be able to see it there. The ruined castle, which is up here. So all of that, so that happened in 2018.
Yep.
Was when they actually set that fire. That all recovered. So all of the fronts of the Mount Solitary there basically grew back, went green again. The ruined castle fire that started over here in November actually then burned again all the way down the front here and all the way across the fronts of Mount Solitary. So it showed that even though they'd done that hazard reduction burn, there was still a lot of new fuel in the incredibly dry conditions that helped those fires actually spread through the valley. That's actually what caused Scenic World to close down for 5 days in December, because those fires were at risk of actually coming all the way up to Echo Point and the Three Sisters and all the way around that side of the valley. So we were very lucky.
So you sort of mentioned there about regeneration and that kind of thing. Is there any species that kind of can't handle the heat, I suppose, or aren't fire tolerant?
Unfortunately, lots. Yeah, I mean, what we see here, the eucalypt species that we see. So, I mean, this is the reason we're World Heritage listed, is all of the eucalypt species that we have in the Blue Mountains. We've got 100 different species up here. We have apparently 13% of the world's eucalypt population across that World Heritage area, which is why we're a World Heritage listed site. So the eucalypts there, they're considered to be what they call a dry sclerophyll forest. And the dry being the operative word, they thrive in dry conditions and they are fire tolerant, and they're actually fire propagating. So when the fires come through, that helps the trees propagate and reseed and move around, especially the banksias and the myrtles. And you'll see, if I got some photos here of some fire activated banksias. We like to call them wide-mouth frogs, because that's a banksia pod that's been burned, and that heating effect on the pods has caused the pods to explode and spread their seed. So they're actually fire propagating. They're fire resistant, fire tolerant species. The eucalypts as well, fire tolerant species. This is epicormic growth. There's actually a better photo of it there. So it's a burned eucalypt tree. And about a month after the fire has actually gone through, buds start to sprout out from all the trunks. And we laugh at the moment as all the trees up here look like they've grown beards, because all of the trunks and branches on the burned trees are just covered in this kind of growth. And that's an epicormic growth system. So again, it's fire activated. The fire burns through the bark back to the base layer under the bark. And the little buds that are actually in that bark then are activated by that fire, and they start to sprout again. So those trees are very, very, very tolerant to fire. It's one of my favorite shots at the moment. I'm getting asked a lot of questions about this at the moment again. It's more of the epicormic growth, the green and the red leaves sprouting off the bottom of a burned tree. That's up at Heaven's Lookout. It's again the Gross Valley off there in the distance. So you're seeing a lot of that up here in the mountains at the moment, even though we're, 8, 9 months since the fires went through. Still all of the trees, and a lot of the trees that still haven't recovered, are now starting to show this growth coming through. So even things that we thought were completely burned out and look likely to never regrow again, you're even seeing in places like up at Mount Hay, you can see where the branches of the trees have been completely petrified by fire, but underneath those trees now, the root system is now starting to sprout that red and green regrowth again. So those species will recover, and they are fire tolerant, and it'll take quite a long time because the fire was so intense, but they will recover gradually over time. Probably not to the level that they've been, because for some of those, they've been around for 100 years and never been touched by fire. So, but the unfortunate thing is, a lot of places way down inside the valleys, we can go back to a sunrise shot here, give you an example. I'll go back to that one for the Three Sisters, slightly different shot taken earlier this year, actually just after the fire's finished. You can see here all of the browning on the trees, if everybody can make that out. So that's where the fire had come down underneath the ruined castle there and burned all the way through. This little thread under here is what they call Causeway Creek. That's where the RFS and the National Parks remote firefighting teams are absolute heroes. We're getting helicoptered in every day, sometimes having to do a 15-kilometer walk out through some very rough terrain to get out of the way, but they were basically backhoeing fire lines down there. But a lot of the fire got into the wet areas in those gullies and canyons, and it's burned out all the wet areas, and those are not fire tolerant. So those areas are pretty much gone and lost. There's still a few of the canyons up here in the mountains that are still closed, and they're closed for that reason, because they were so gutted by fire that what they were previously, it's going to take a long time for them to recover, maybe never to recover back to where they were, which is very unfortunate. So, and a lot of those areas where they're wet areas are actually the natural habitat for a lot of species. So a lot of snakes, a lot of reptiles, some of the birds, a few wallaby species as well that are down there. And so they've pretty much lost all of that habitat there, and that's forced the movement of all of the animals and the wildlife to try and find different areas to go. As I say, it's the World Heritage Institute, or the Blue Mountains World Heritage Institute, who do a lot of work to study these things. They're currently looking now, they're putting out camera traps everywhere in the valley. so they can try and count what's happened to the wildlife, try and watch the recovery growing over time. And we're doing a lot of time lapse and photos of areas where we're going in repeatedly every week to capture images that they can build up on a time lapse over time to see how well everything's recovering. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of those wet areas, both here in the Jamison Valley on this side, further over the back in the Wild Dog Mountains and into Canangra Boyd, and certainly over in the Wollemi and the Grouse Valley side of things where those wet areas existed, they've all been thoroughly decimated by that fire.
I saw some really incredible stories about the Wollemi pines and how the rangers and RFS staff actually saved the Wollemi pine population in there. And some incredible shots of the whole area is just totally gutted with fire, and you've just got this string of green down in the bottom of the canyon where the Wollemi pines are. So
where they grow, and yeah, incredible, because this is the things, they don't give away where the Wollemi pines are because they are the original pines. You can go out and you can buy cuttings of them, or you can have ones that you can grow in your own gardens now. It costs about $2,000 to buy a cutting for you to grow, because it seems to be such a rarity and such an exceptional plant. But yeah, those areas that they exist in, so they don't tell anybody where they are, and they're actually very heavily signed. If you get close to the area, you'll find a lot of signs and fencing all around that basically say, do not cross this line. You're entering a protected area. But yeah, they had to go in, they had to be very conscious of carrying any microbial species on their clothing.
Biosecurity, yeah.
From other areas. They might have been fighting fires. So basically had to go in boiler suits, white boiler suits, like forensic experts, to try and avoid bringing any microbial species or anything else into the area. And they were doing the same thing, completely remote, helicoptered in, helicoptered out at the end of the day, sometimes staying in overnight and literally building water lines all the way around the plantation to make sure that they could keep it wet and stop the fire crossing those lines and getting in there. So yeah, just incredible work. These guys are heroes, absolutely, for the kind of work that we're doing. Just by the fact that they had to be helicoptered in remotely with their own hand tools and a couple of very lightweight petrol-powered chainsaws to do all the firework. It's incredible to see what they've been doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me get on to a couple of things here. Let me just try and get through. I'll go through a couple of areas we'll talk about. So we talked about Echo Point, Three Sisters, Mount Solitary there, and the Jamison Valley, and that beautiful Jamison Valley over there. So one of my favorite spots to go and shoot. It's been difficult to do recently because the sun never actually rises over the top of it. You actually have to be in the summer equinox, and you'll literally see the sun rising about here. So the sun, this is actually a south-facing view, but still you get that beautiful light blazing into the valley as the sun rises over the top of King's Tableland, off in the distance there as well. Grouse Valley, again, this is from Pulpit Rock, looking out on that side. Again, Govet's Leap is just to the right here, but again, that view out to Mount Hay over in the distance, and just to the left here would be Mount Banks, which is the Blue Mountains' highest peak, over in the corner here. Mount Hay and Mount Banks are actually volcanic spouts, which some people don't realize. That's why they've got flat tops to them. It's actually a basalt cap from the volcanic flows that came through that partially formed the mountains. So seeing those features up there, which are the highest peaks that we have up here, not quite peaks as such, but little lumps on the horizon. What else have we got here? And go through. Castle Head's a favourite of mine as well. It's been closed until fairly recently because of the bushfires.
Is that from the end of Narrowneck? Is it?
Yeah. So this is on the edge of Narrowneck. So Narrowneck, you come along Narrowneck, which is to the left here, and this then takes you out over the top of Castle Head, looking out on a different view over the top of Mount Solitary.
Right.
So there's Mount Solitary, a different view side there. That's the ruined castle on top there, that little, which is why they call it Castle Head, because you're looking down over the top of the ruined castle, and that beautiful ridge line that you see running all the way over there as well. So all of the fire came all the way through here, and actually you still can't get to the ruined castle because or even up onto Mount Solitary, although some people are doing it, because the whole area is still falling trees happening in there, and unfortunately succumbed to a fairly large landslide as well on one of the major access points a few weeks ago after all of the rain. So things in the national park changing in that environment all the time. So we've had fire, floods, now landslides. So,
Yeah, I guess after the fires and when the rain comes and there's less I guess protection for the soil there, so it's erosion happens much easier as well, and so you can have like a double whammy effect there.
And that's exactly what's happened. So all the way across Narrowneck. So the new landslide that's occurred there is actually taken out part of what they call the Golden Stairs. And that's a very famous stairway that takes you down off the top of Narrowneck into the valley, and it's the main access point to get to for walkers to go up onto the top of Mount Solitary and do the trek over Ruined Castle of Mount Solitary. So it was only 3 weeks ago now that landslide happened. It was just after the last really heavy rain system that we had coming through. Filled up the waterfalls, but caused the landslide. And again, the same, because when the fire came through with such intensity, what it did, the way the eucalypts burn is they burn through their roots as well, which is why the ground gets hot. And so all the root system got burned away. And then we had the 3 days of once in a 50-year rainfall that put the fires out, but caused a lot of soil erosion at the same time. And it's only taken a couple more significant rainfalls for it to basically give way and for that landslide to occur. So it's considered that it's been a bit of a warning sign. And a lot of people saying at the moment is there are still a lot of very dangerous areas in the national park that we have to be very conscious of especially if we're going into remote areas, because they were affected by fire and then we had the rain. So there's a big difference. I think I put a photo up, actually on my Facebook at the time. So let me get to here. So it's a very bad. This has just got the shadows pumped up on the image, but that's the Three Sisters. 1, 2, 3, and there's the fire raging at King's Table End. So this was taken on the 2nd of February. And then let me go to 2020, 2nd of February. Would have been.
Look very organised there, Jay, with all your folders and.
Oh, it's organised chaos, 2nd of February, Blue Mountains fires, and then 7th of February. There we go. Give you an idea. After 3 days of absolutely pummeling rain.
Oh.
And that put the fires out. So basically we went from fires on end of 1 week to flooding rain and full waterfalls and no fires within a 3-day period. And that rain system that came through actually caused more damage to areas of the national park than the fires did. The fires just burned stuff, but the floods actually took away a lot of actual national park infrastructure, walking tracks and everything else, caused a lot of problems that are still actually closed because of floods, not because of fires. So it gives you an idea of how things change.
Which waterfall is that one, Jay?
That's Weeping Rock at Wentworth Falls. It's always the famous when you see people sitting their cameras underneath this stairway here.
Yep.
Because people like to take photos of the water tumbling down the stairway.
Cool. Never got down there.
Yeah, unfortunately still closed after that flooding event, but hopefully going to be open again fairly soon. So I'm kind of looking forward to when it is, because we've been dying to get back in there for a while. So just a lot of the walking tracks all the way in there just completely destroyed. There's a very famous walk up here called the Charles Darwin Walk. I don't know if people are aware that Charles Darwin actually spent a lot of time in the Blue Mountains when he came to Australia, and had a lot to say about Wentworth Falls in particular as an area. Almost wrote a whole chapter of a book about Wentworth Falls and what it is, and that led to Wentworth Falls being opened as a tourist area back in the late 1800s. So gives you an idea as to sort of the age of tourism up here in the mountains as well. That's when people started coming up from Sydney to follow in the footsteps of Charles Darwin. So the Charles Darwin Walk has basically succumbed so much flood damage, it swept away 6 of the bridges that crossed over the creek bed that the walk traverses all the way down, and it's about a $2.5 million repair bill that are having to go through to reopen it. It's going to take about 2 years to reopen it all. So pretty devastating.
Wow.
Let's talk about some positive stuff rather than fires and floods,
I
shall
was
we?
going to say, mate. Been a bit like,
Um,
oh,
The one real benefit about being up in the mountains, that's actually horrible colors. I don't know why it shows up like that on the screen, but all the waterfalls that we have, we love it when the rain comes through because the waterfalls just absolutely explode. And although those waterfalls can get a little too full, cause a little bit of damage, they're absolutely amazing places to go and photograph. You do have to be a little careful with some of them, but a lot of places are actually very accessible, very easy to get access to. This is one of my favorites. It's Salote Pool. It's down at Terrace Falls Reserve. So the colors look absolutely awful on that one, but beautiful mossy green environment. And when you get the light shining in from the sun through all of the coachwood trees that surround it, it looks absolutely stunning. Even a little terrace fungi growing off this little log coming across the front here. So, what a favorite spot to go down, capture fungus and lots of mosses, lots of coachwood, a very, very green,
There's
wet
a
environment.
cool fig tree there or something perched on top of that rock as well.
Yeah, so there's actually a log that's now gone. Unfortunately, the flooding rain took it away. A few years ago, when I first started coming down here, that log had actually fallen. It was actually across the top here. People know Peter Hill, also well known. He's got a lot of photos of it when the log was over the top there. And gradually that rotted away and fell into the pool. Unfortunately, that's now gone because the flooding rain that came through actually took a lot of that away and actually changed a lot of the environment. I was down there the other week, and so that's pretty much what it looks like now.
It's very clean,
unprocessed. Yeah. But that log's actually gone. It's now behind me from where we take this photo. Yeah. So it's a massive change in the environment. Another one we talk about here. Actually, I don't have it here. So when those floods came through, I'll give you an idea. This is a shot of part of Weeping Rock when the flooding rain came through. Actually, before that, floods actually started in the rain event we had before that didn't put the fires out back in the 17th of January. So beautiful flowing water coming through there. And you can see there, just everything, all the rocks are still kind of black. They're all still looking quite like they've not been touched by a huge amount of water. If you look at those same set of falls today, let me find one. There we go. Look at that one. You see how all of the falls have now, the terraces are now yellow.
Oh, is it? It's sort of worn off all the algae, is it?
Yeah. So where the heavy rain came through and brought all the sediments down with it as well, it's changed the environment. It's scrubbed away all the algified rocks that are there. This is Sylvia Falls down in Valley of the Waters. Again, very not too easy to access, but a very accessible waterfall. There's actually a footpath set of stairs that comes down the side here, brings you around the front of it. We've actually renamed Sylvia Falls to Simon Falls now because he's growing a little appendage after the floods. So Louise is laughing at that. So we don't call it Sylvia anymore. It's now Simon Falls. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, again, all of that caused by that flooding rain that came down. It changed the environment completely and changed it long term. So this stuff won't come back to the level that it was before the floods for a long, long time. And so it's very easy to spot Sylvia Falls shots that were taken before the floods and that were taken after, because you'll always see the shots that have got the really scrubbed sandstone terracing ones that have been taken after that flooding rain came through.
Do you think it actually looks more attractive with it sort of scrub like that?
In color, yes, but in black and white, no.
Okay.
In black and white, if I look in the black and white shots, it creates a lot more contrast on the terracey tops of things. A little more difficult to deal with if you're trying to have those really moody, contrasty black and white shots. But no, I mean, I do like it. There's another shot from a different angle with that scrubbing that's on there as well. But yeah, pretty much every set of falls that you visit up here now has got that change to it. So it's one to look out for. Quite exciting to see the difference and see what Mother Nature did to us through that period. So let's go back here. So yeah, another one, Terrace Falls. This is pre-flood. So Terrace Falls Reserve, again, not too full of water, but one of my favorite sets of falls after very heavy rain. all of the terraces across here actually light up all the way across.
It's accessible from Katoomba, isn't it? Terrace Falls?
It's actually Hazelbrook.
Oh, okay, it's down
Yeah,
that
so
way.
this is Terrace Falls Reserve in Hazelbrook, and Slope
Yeah.
Pool as well. That first one we were showing, that's in that same reserve. That's
Yeah.
about a 200-meter walk away from that set of falls that's there.
And there's Hazelbrook Falls too, isn't there? Which is
Yeah, so you've got Horseshoe Falls in Hazelbrook.
Oh, that's the one.
Horseshoe and Burgess Falls. Not so frequented, but again, there's still quite nice falls after heavy rain. Just a bit further up the road as well, you've got what's now the very famous South Lawson waterfall loop as well. And after heavy rain, very easy walking track to get around. And you've got 5 or 6 different sets of falls there to go and see.
Favorites. I love it. Yeah.
And the thing about all of these ones is that they're the mid mountains, so they're not underneath the big escarpments, like you have with the big tall falls like Katoomba Falls or Govett Sleep or Wentworth Falls. This is actually all from urban runoff. So our city, the Blue Mountains, sits above everything at the top here, and all the roads and the streets at the top there. And basically every time it rains, all that water fills up all the creek systems underneath and fills up all of these falls as well. So create some very, very beautiful falls there, and often unseen because people don't really realize that they're there unless you've been taken down or shown where they are. So it's one of my favorite ones to take people to at the moment, especially on tours. That's a different view of Terrace Falls, got a little bit more water in it. That's that same 3-point falls you can see on the other image. And just on the other side there, you often get eddies underneath the falls as well. You can capture with long exposure, especially after some heavy rain. So you get to pick up those eddies there as well.
Was the track into Terrace Falls closed at one point? I just remember there being.
It's been closed once before, just through fallen trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's signs all over. It's a council reserve. It's not part of the national park. People walk their dogs down there, so you'll often see dogs and families doing their day trips and things down there as well. It's not a particularly well maintained trail to get down there, but it's still accessible. You just have to be very careful that if I always say when I take people on tour down there is to check for danger, look around you, because you're underneath a gully of trees that are about 50, 60 meters high on either side of you. Any of those trees could fall into the gully at any time, especially after heavy rain. So you just have to be very aware of listening out for any cracking of trees, or listening out for any movement when you're actually out doing the waterfalls. Sometimes not easy because the rushing water is the only thing you're really focused on, but you do need to really be aware of your surroundings as well.
Is that Weeping Rock number 6 there? No.
Yeah, that's Weeping Rock in Lura.
Yeah.
And that's the other side of it as well.
Okay.
So that's the view you can only get to. And then if you just walk across the falls at the front there, that's the other view of it. This boulder here on the right is actually this boulder here.
Got it.
With these stairs cut into it, because this used to be have a footpath and a bridge over the top, since washed away, and that path is no longer used. Unfortunately, that trail now closed as well because of a landslide. So that's at the bottom of Lura Cascades, but when you actually get to the bottom of Lura Cascades, or it's the bottom of Bridal Veil Falls, you can't get any further down there. They fenced it off because the landslide on, if you look at the National Parks alerts, it's the amphitheatre track. So yeah, not going to be accessible for a long time again, unfortunately, due to landslides. Again, that changing environment in the national parks hasn't created any new falls for us, unfortunately, but we can to replace it. But we're pretty sure some other areas are going to open up at some stage, and we'll start to see other falls.
It does also make you realise, I guess, how much things can change, and you really are documenting history when you take a lot of these pictures. And there's every chance that an event will change it, and it will never be the same. And so it's always good to try and nail a shot whenever you're there. Never.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the environment changes all the time up here. Landslides happen. We have fires. We have floods. It's things recover over time. Water courses change direction. New falls pop up from time to time when heavy rain comes through. So the environment up around this area in particular does change very frequently. So you do have to also be very aware when you're walking around and making sure that you're keeping yourself safe. Some of the spots that we do go to get these places, that they, I often spend a lot of time looking around, trying to make sure that I'm not going to get squished by a tree or a large boulder. So that's Terrace Falls after a lot of rain. That's probably a better, more long exposure shot of it. So again, that same set of falls. This is actually just after that heavy rainfall in February. They put the fires out. So again, that whole terrace there lit up with water just after all the heavy rainfall came through. So again, just after the rain, the falls changed their character, changed their appearance dramatically.
Is that Bridal Veil, that tall one, number 17 there?
That's Bridal Veil up at Govert's Leap. Or it's actually not Bridal Veil, it's actually Govert's Leap Falls.
Okay.
They've put a very clear name difference between that one being Govert's Leap and Bridal Veil being the one at Lyra Cascades.
Okay.
So as far as national parks are concerned, some of the signs still say Bridal Veil Falls, Govert's Leap Falls, but yeah. So again, that's after that heavy rain. And again, you can see here all of the browned off trees from just after the bushfires. So literally after the Gross Valley fire went through in this area, caused a lot of devastation around the area there, but then the water's come through and basically refreshed a lot of that. Look at the difference between there now. Everything there is green again after 8 months. It's been a pretty incredible recovery.
I've been seeing a few very risky shots on the edge of that waterfall lately.
Let's not go there.
Yeah.
No, okay, let's go there. I got into a bit of an argument with someone about this a couple of weeks ago because I said, look, can you please take some responsibility when you're posting your Instagram stories from areas that you know are closed and that you shouldn't be accessing, because your influence is probably going to get someone killed. They didn't like that comment, but it's the truth. The edge of these set of falls here, right where my little pointer is on there, there's actually a big steel fence a little further back there with a big sign that says "Cliff Edge, do not cross." And everybody just skirts around the edge of the fence and walks up to the edge of the falls there. Those falls are 213 meters high. And on the edge there, and if you do see some of those photos and some of those stories, people are literally perched right on the edge of a 200-meter high drop with a camera tripod taking photos. It's become quite a popular spot there. The path down it that you can use there is very clear cut down the back of that trail. Now, the whole thing at the moment is that this trail that comes down from Govert's Leap to go down here is still closed after the bushfires. And there are actually fencing panels at the start and end of the trail that say, danger, do not go into this area. People are still going in there and heading down to the falls and doing it. So it's one of those things. It's a bit of a contentious point up here at the moment certainly as a licensed operator up here, I could never take anyone to there when it's closed. And I never would. And I would certainly never take anyone over the fence and take someone to the edge of the falls, even though I get asked, can I take people there all the time? It's something we've got to be very careful of with the influence of Instagram and putting those images and those stories out and saying, look at us on the edge of this waterfall, isn't it amazing? And other people are going to try and go down there and maybe not as confident and are going to have an accident. And I would hate to think of the poor police rescue guys that are going to have to go and recover someone if they've gone off the edge there. It's a very horrible thing to think about.
It's always a people see these beautiful shots and they want to have it for themselves, and
trophy hunting, isn't that what we call it?
Mm.
So look, if you can, it's always the thing. And again, I would say that as a guide, as a certified guide, and as a photographer, if you come to these areas, make sure you know what you're doing, and please stay out of the closed areas. They're closed for a reason. And that's just to make sure that they're keeping people safe. So some of the falls around the area here, Katoomba Falls, one of my favorites. Again, it's just down the road from here. Great comp of this one. You can go down to what we call Juliet's Balcony, look out between the trees there, and you got the tumbling waters over Katoomba Falls. Very special shot taken halfway up on the cableway through the window with the skyway running over the top of it. Of Katoomba Falls, quite full of water off in the distance there. Due to the drought all the way up until the back end of last year, which pretty much led us to have the dry environment and the fires, Katoomba Falls never been known to run dry in all of our recorded history. It's always had water in it. it came within a hair's breadth of actually running dry. Literally, the water had almost stopped flowing over the edge there. So not quite. There was still water coming through, but we would have needed, we need a lot of rain to actually get that going again.
Have you ever shot it when it's been like really like after one of those torrential downpours or anything like that? Because that'd be quite spectacular, I would have thought.
Oh, yeah, I thought I did. I thought I had one in here, but let me just sift back through. Oh, here we go.
Oh wow.
So that was after the January rain, not the big February one. In the February one, it was too misty; you couldn't get any shots. I've probably got a couple taken from the sky, or a couple of videos of it, but you can see there that's only a 1.6 second exposure. How much more water is actually in those falls, and that's only the top half of it. There's still another 130 meters down below here as well of those falls as well. So yeah, so
like the Southern Highlands waterfalls with that sort of volume, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That Belmore Falls and Fitzroy. Yeah. So Katoomba Falls, it definitely is. It's one of my favorites up here. Again, it's quite accessible. There's a couple of really nice views from there as well. You can get down to the middle tier. Again, there is a fence here. There is a very clear sign that says "Do not cross." And the reason for not crossing over here is because this little terrace here is actually very slippery at the best of times anyway. And off the side here is very...
You could look up at the waterfall and have the core above there.
Yeah, yeah. I've tried that one. You can't quite get the core there, unfortunately. I've tried painting a core in there, but it doesn't quite work that way. And I'm working on that one. I'll come back to that in the future. Yeah. But yeah, after a lot of water, again, this whole terrace here actually lights up. Quite a difficult place to take a photograph from. And you can see a lot of water droplets on my image here, because literally you can't keep your lens clean because there's so much water spray coming. And as the wind blows, it takes the top half of the falls. And if it pushes it too far over in the wind, you get very wet where you're stood. So always worth taking a towel out with you as well to put over your camera to keep it protected from the spray. So yeah, Katoomba Falls, great spot to go to. And it definitely is one, if anybody ever comes up here and wants to go down there, just give me a shout, because I love taking people down to that set of falls down there any time of the day. Just be prepared for a walk. Again, it's a walk goes down, must come up set of stairs.
What was that 29 there? Is that
So that's just a little tiny set of falls down on the Federal Pass.
Okay.
Again, you go down Fernbauer. It takes you from Lura down into the valley. There's a couple of little sets of falls down there as well, little tiny ones. So you can see by the size of the ferns here, this is actually not a very big set of falls. But again, particularly, I do like photographing after heavy rain. The only problem with Fernbauer is that you have to check your ankles for leeches afterwards, because you normally come out with about 3 or 4 attached. They're good for your blood, but yeah, certainly a lot of falls down there, beautiful ones to be able to go and go and have a look at as well. I think this is what you were talking about, Luke.
What's that one?
This is Wentworth Falls. This is actually the top of Wentworth Falls.
Right. Yep.
And then with the Milky Way rising over the top there as well. So not quite the gap clearance there like you had with where with the falls that you did.
Oh, the Pelverada Falls. Yeah.
Yeah. So which is an amazing shot. I'm absolutely blown away by that shot. I am trying to find a set of falls here where we can actually get that kind of similar arrangement, but none of them actually stand out as being in the right direction. I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, it's always good to work out which way they're falling and whether the eastern rise or the western fall will line up with the top of them.
As I say, you'll probably see me paint one in or comp one in at some stage. I'll pass it off and see if anybody catches me out. So yeah, the other side, at the top of Wentworth Falls as well, getting a beautiful set of falls after water with really beautiful running strip of water underneath it. And from this set here, you actually then walk up onto what they call Rocket Point. And Rocket Point is the big look down onto Wentworth Falls, which that's Wentworth Falls after the rains the other week. From the top of Rocket Point there, so that's Wentworth Falls running all the way down. And again, the grand staircase that takes you all the way down to the base of Wentworth Falls on either side there. If you're actually down on the middle tier down here at that point, you wouldn't even want to get your camera out after this amount of rain, because you're just getting absolutely soaking wet with the spray that's coming through. You also feel the pressure of the water the air pressure that's caused by the water dropping as well when you're down there. It almost feels like you have to hang on to the rocks down there to keep yourself stood up. There's so much water flowing through. Again, a beautiful spot to head up to. So that's up a rocket point. A little bit of a climb to get up there, but definitely worth a look after heavy rain, especially if you get the misty mornings. Like this one was the mist rolling in, mist rolling back out. And you get that view all the way down to the base of the falls there.
Have you ever been able to shoot Witch's Leap Falls?
I have indeed shot Witch's Leap Falls.
That's more ephemeral, isn't it? Doesn't always. It's more after only heavy rain.
There we go. Yeah, again, it's the same. It's always dripping, but it's normally after heavy rain. And again, people don't realize why it's called Witch's Leap until you actually really point it out to them. And you can't really see it off this shot here. But imagine the Wicked Witch of the West in Wizard of Oz. And the actual falls, the rock actually has the profile of the witch's hat and her pointy nose and her pointy chin.
Oh, right.
So that's why it's called Witch's Leap. Because it's that stereotypical Welsh witch from when the explorers first came out and discovered the falls, and they said, "Yeah, those rocks look like a witch as we know it from Halloween." So yeah, that's Witch's Leap. Very bright at the top there, but yeah, that's after a lot of heavy rain coming through there as well. What else?
It looks like you've got more than enough waterfalls to choose from there. Anyway, it's pretty awesome.
It's the one thing I tend to find now I'm doing more of. I'm more, even more than Astro these days. I tend to be looking out for the rainfall and working out which set of falls I'm going to go and try and photograph. I'm saying if you can catch it at the right time. So, for example, down here, this is at the bottom of the South Lawson waterfall loop.
Yep.
So after a few days heavy rain, and these were unprocessed. These are just the recent shots that I took when I was down there. You've got Cataract Falls, which has got 4 or 5 really nice compositions that you can pick up on them. You've then got Junction Falls, and there's Junction 1 and 2. Junction 1 and 2, there's this one set of falls that's permanently had this log fallen across it. And you can get a really nice little panorama kind of crop down there as well of the water tumbling onto the rocks down there as well. You've got Junction Falls number 2, which again has got 4 or 5 different compositions across the falling water, tumbling waters down there. And then if I can find it in here, and then you've got a couple of bonus falls around there as well. If you catch them at the right time of day, you get a sunstar coming running on through the trees there as well. Lots of lens flare in that shot. Not a particularly good one, but getting an example of some other things that you can go chasing with your waterfalls as well to try and make them a little bit more unique. Apparently, I've become a bit of an aficionado of sunstars with waterfalls, because I got this one at Katoomba Falls a few weeks back as well, where we got the sun literally just rising off the top of the escarpment there, and great sunstar over the top of the falls that was tumbling on down.
Jay, it's just been many tasks through a lot of it. Like, it's one of those areas with such low and high escarpments and so on that you're going to be constantly having to deal with high dynamic range sort of photographs. And a lot of your shots are straight into the light as well. Do you have sort of a sense of how to explain to people how you handle that, like such a big dynamic range? Do you do HDR work or exposure blending, or you just use the new Sony, which has a good dynamic range already, or how do you sort of handle?
Yeah, so I shoot with Sony. That was a game changer for me. So shooting with the A7R. I used to shoot with Canon with a 5D Mark III and 5D Mark IV, and I used to find myself bracketing pretty much every time, even though I was using filters. Filters, yeah, right. Yeah, so the A7R, I'm using pretty much constantly. I'm using it a lot of the time without filters. So places like Govet's Leap. Let me go back to the sunrise shots here. Let me find. So this would have been shot with the Canon. This would have had a grad across it to try and stop down the sky while I bring out that foreground as well. And then obviously a lot of work of bringing up shadows, dropping down highlights. So almost doing the HDR in Lightroom. Bracketing quite a lot of the time as well. So you would end up doing some exposure blending with the bracket. But more recent shots, say here, So yeah, so up onto Narrow here. So actually the sun rising would have been well to the left here. So this is one of the things you can do, is you can try and find yourself a composition if you've got the cloud in the sky that's not directly into the sun, and it looks maybe further south or maybe further north. So you're getting out of that light, and you're not getting that bright light. So that was shot without a filter. Still on the Sony, still on the A7R, but actually shot without a filter. So we're still getting those little bright spots there, but managed to handle the exposure well. Let me have a look here. And this is the one that Luke mentioned earlier. This is the one from the other day, Luke. Yeah. It's just come out where I've just pumped up shadows and dropped down highlights. Just really, really bizarre colored sky. But again, that would have had a filter. I would have used the Nissi filter grad across the top there, just to try and stop down the sky, to allow me to expose longer for the foreground.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like if you can get that horizon gap and get the sun blaring through that gap, you just get the most incredible morning light. So
yeah.
Do you have any apps or anything that you use to sort of tell if it's worth heading out, or is it, you know, a bit of a poke the head out in the morning to see what it looks like, or is it just a matter of just committing and whatever happens, happens?
Yeah, look, I'm trying to commit more and more, because I want to just be out every morning to try and capture, even if it's clear skies.
Yep.
Because you never know what's going to happen. And you're always going to find, and I've kind of got myself to a point here where you've probably noticed on that little film strip of sunrises there, a lot of it's Echo Points, Three Sisters, a lot of it's Govett Sleep, particularly at the moment, because a lot of other places around the valley are still closed and you can't get to those spots to get the sunrise or get the good sunrise compositions. But yeah, trying to challenge myself to go out and find new and different compositions in different areas, not necessarily doing the full-on into the sunlight, into the sunrise kind of shots. But, you know, it can be, you can pick up some great little extra spots there. This is actually during the fires. So the sky there was heavily blanketed by smoke, filtered out the sun pretty nicely. So it has that almost, that's that classic Japanese rising sun image. Kind of look to it, which I always love when I see conditions like that. And occasionally when you get that very thin, hazy cloud on the horizon, you'll get sunrises like that as well. So that's actually taken with the 100-400mm lens, and that was actually taken from Echo Point. So the Three Sisters are just underneath here, and going straight off into the distance to where that sun was rising.
That shot you had up just before from, I think it was Narrowneck or Boar's Head, Boar's Rock rather, that foreground rock is been quite popular in quite a few shots I've seen lately, and is definitely a great subject to work with by the looks. Like you can find a whole bunch of different angles to shoot that as a foreground interest, and probably end up with all sorts of different compositions and shots. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this one of the great things about finding the escarpment tops here. Obviously, 2-meter rule really applies. You need to keep yourself away from the edges if you can, especially when they're unfenced. But this whole line down here, this is the edge of Narrowneck that runs down here, and you have all of the basalt rocks. So the old lava flow rocks. That's what you see at Bull's Head as well, or a lot of people now calling Sunset Rock. It's the basalt flows that have actually created that kind of wavy, rippled rock look to them. And so you see those in spots on the escarpment top there, and they can provide some great compositions. A bit further along from here as well, you've got some grass trees growing up there as well. So that's that same escarpment line running on down with a little grass tree growing up there as well. I think I've got another one from a little further down. So that's actually where those were shot on that escarpment top there. And there's a little walk down over here as well, and you get that ridge view all the way up to Ruin Castle and up onto Narrowneck there. So just that one spot at the top on the escarpment of Narrowneck there is awash with different compositions and looks. But you probably see from there, all of those are actually looking south. The sun is actually rising way over to the east on this side here. So there's lots of, all the lights and all the action is probably happening here. But if you actually catch those days where the cloud is stretched all the way over, then you're going to get some color in there as well, so you can focus in those directions too.
Cool.
Okay, so let's have a chat about some other stuff, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's have a think about some. I'm going to go back to the fires for a minute,
Yeah.
just because there was some exciting things that happened around the fires as well. I'll just give some people an idea. Apart from the growth that was going on, the light that we were getting when the blanket of smoke was starting to clear and the sun coming through. The color on here is untouched. So this is actually how the sunlight was shining through into the rainforest underneath in the valley, through the filter of the smoke. So really made a huge difference to how the color looked against all the trees. It's actually quite exciting to see how the color changed down there as well. So even though the fires around were pretty devastating, those parts of the rainforest, that's actually the base of Scenic World. Also, those 3 images there are actually the base of Scenic World. So they were saved. So we were very lucky to still have those there. What else exciting happened? I don't know how well this works. Oh, we got to see a lot of stuff like this.
Is that like a Korski, are they called?
It's one of the Ericsson air cranes.
Ericsson aircranes, okay.
This is down at Wentworth Falls Lake. So maybe hear the sound on that as well.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Those very powerful turbines spinning around, keeping that thing afloat while it sucked up lots and lots of water.
The pilots must be so skilled to be able to do that.
Yeah, and so you can actually, so again, you're looking at apps like Flight Radar. Flight Radar would actually show you this going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards all day to the same spot to drop the water on the same spot of the fire. So you knew pretty much where it's filling up. This is actually at Wentworth Falls Lake. The council actually posted something a couple of days afterwards and said that on that day, Wentworth Falls Lake dropped by almost a foot because of the water that the air crane was taking out of it. That's it taking off with its water, with its tanks full, and then flying off and actually dumping it over the top of the fire. So again, 400 mil lens with a teleconverter. Very, very handy to have around when they're doing lots of helicopter traffic like that. So lots of exciting stuff like that was happening as well when the fires were around. So that was keeping us quite occupied chasing the helicopter traffic around. So yeah, so I just wanted to show that because that was one thing that was quite an interesting one to look at. On the other side of the extreme,
what's happening in number 2? Oh, it's all right.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask what was happening in number 2 there. Is that?
That's over on Narroneck.
Right.
So that's looking out from the other side of Echo Point. Scenic World is just down to the right here, and this is where the fire was actually making its way up onto the top of Narroneck before spilling over into the Megalong Valley on the other side. Now, I didn't get many great photos of the fire itself. I saw a few where people had done panoramas all the way across the front of the Three Sisters and the Jameson Valley, where it's just showing that line of fire, and the same up in the Gross Valley as well, from Go It Sleep, even though Go It Sleep at that point was actually closed, so people shouldn't have actually been there. But again, you can see, yeah, that line of fire just making its way up over the top of the escarpment there, and that burned out pretty much quite a large portion of Narroneck over the top there as well. Let's go to the other extreme, shall we? So this is what we've had the past few days. Now this is actually from last year, so this is a bit of cheating. This is not what we had today. Let me just open this in. Yeah, let me get there. Go to fit. Is this going to?
Is it in library mode? Or? Oh, okay.
It's in library mode. Why is that not showing up? Hang on, let me go to this one. Let me go back to that one. There we go.
Weird.
So every now and again, we do get snow in front of the Three Sisters.
That's creepy. Wow.
Believe it or not, somebody accused me of making that up, and they said, "No, that's snow. That snow's been
styrofoam to bring."
But that was actually August the 10th last year, so that was the shot that went viral. I got a lot of licensing requests off that one. It got viewed on Scenic World's Facebook page over 1 million times, and it's their highest engagement post they've ever had by a country mile. So there were a lot of people going up because no one had seen snow in front of the Three Sisters for such a long time. So it got quite popular. Let me go back to, there we go. Go to grid view and then back to single view. So there we go. So that was the snow in front of the
wow.
Three Sisters. Now, unfortunately, this part of the lookout's now been removed because this is where they've actually built the new lookout. So they've actually taken up these grass plants and ferns that we hear, which is quite unfortunate. But again, that's that view off that same day where we're getting all that beautiful snow right in front of the Three Sisters there.
And it closed off too, didn't it? So you there would have been not as many people coming through. Is that right?
Yeah, because Weymouth Falls on that day, the roads closed at Weymouth Falls, so no one could get through. People who'd come up earlier in the day from the city managed to get through, but then the snow was so heavy at that point that then they had to close all the roads off anyway. So yeah, nobody else could actually get up. So we were very lucky. There were very few of us there. This is actually the park just in front of my house.
Wow.
So this is what I actually looked like when I looked out of my house that morning, which is quite exciting, living in the middle of Katoomba, in the middle of town. And then over the top of the hill towards Jenolan, it's actually the next day. You can pretty still make out in the distance there. The snow is still coming down in that image over the top of that log there. Have to show a bit of Catty. So some people on here may know Catty if they've ever come across it before. It's one of my photographer friends getting himself covered in snow up in the Jenolan State Forest. And then actually from the past few days, probably some of the better shots that we've actually managed to get, because we've never seen this much snow over in the State Forest before. There was, it's still like that today, apparently. I've seen photos from there this morning. And because it's been so cold and frosty, there's been no wind. All the snow is still clinging to the trees like this over there now, 4 days later. So it hasn't actually shifted. So it's very much a winter wonderland over there at the moment.
Did it fall in the Gardens of Stone and all of that area?
Yeah, I didn't get the chance to go over. But yeah, Gardens of Stone had quite a bit of snow over at Nunes, up on top of Nunes Plateau. Lost City apparently had quite a lot of snow over that direction as well. And on the other side of Blackheath as well. So on the other side of Mount Blackheath Lookout Way, the road all the way along there as well. I've seen a lot of shots of that today from the weekend. It's warmed up too much now, so it's already melted off. But all the trees with that sideways snow against the trees, like this one here. So the snow clings onto the trees sideways, and you're just waiting for that beautiful light to come through from the sunrise to light it up for you. Unfortunately, I missed it on this occasion, but there'll always be next year. Because now it's going to be an annual event now. It's going to keep happening.
Have you seen any, and it's not this area, but whenever it snows, it's a favourite for people to go to Sugar Pines, but obviously that got burnt out with the fires.
Yeah, they're all gone. They finished chopping them down last.
Oh, they actually cut them down, did they?
Yeah, because the Sugar Pines were they were a sacrificial crop anyway.
Yeah.
So they were being grown specifically at some stage, like the Polonia pines were in Richmond.
Yeah.
Remember the Polonia pines in Richmond? They got chopped down eventually. The owners decided to sell the timber because they'd matured and they were ready to go. The sugar pines as well had matured, and because the fire, although it impacted them enough that they wouldn't have continued growing, the timber was still viable. So forestry basically cut them down and sold them to Japan. So they'll be building a house in Japan at the moment. So, or on a ship on their way over to Japan anyway. But so that's unfortunately they've all been closed down. They've been chopped down now. But hopefully they'll be growing another plantation of it somewhere close by in that area as well. So we might still get, probably not in our lifetime though, but they'll certainly grow back for future generations. Anyway, so I wanted to show a few snow shots from over the weekend as well. So unprocessed, that's why it's looking so dark. Yeah. Again, that snow clinging to the side of the trees. That was up at Jenolan Caves. So the snow even falling down at Jenolan Caves there as well. Couldn't actually get in towards the caves because they closed the roads off because the roads were so icy and slippery. But just on the approach road on the way in at the top there, had a lot of snow against there as well.
Is Hanging Rock accessible these days?
Yeah, that's reopened again now. I have seen a couple of shots of people who were up there when it was snowing the other day, but apparently it didn't stick very well. So not really actually got any snow over the top there. I think it might have been Ben Mays may have done.
Okay.
May have been up there last year, in last year's snowfall. But I'm pretty sure I saw a shot from there last year of someone with the snow that was there as well.
Right.
Yeah. And one of the other things we don't talk about that often here. Around every autumn, we get a lot of fungi. Just a very quick selection. I've probably got peeps more because I spent a lot of time shooting fungi over this year. So throughout autumn, very lucky. Unfortunately, the pandemic thing came and told us we all had to stay at home. So we missed out on a lot of the fungi season. But you know, a lot of the fungi shots that we managed to get around here as well. We've got some beautiful fungi growing up all around the mountains as well, including the ever elusive ghost fungi. Every time I seem to find a crop of to go back and photograph, it's gone by the time I go back, because either somebody's picked it, or somebody's kicked it, or it's just gone off its prime.
I think it only lasts. I think it's only at its peak for a day or so, or 1 or 2 days.
It's 3 or 4 days. But so I found 3 or 4 different patches of it this year during the daytime, and by the time I'd gone back at night, every single one of them, someone had actually cut them down. So they're a bit of a collector's item as well.
A real challenge to shoot. Remember shooting the ghost fungi on Shooting Island, Paul?
Yeah, I remember trying to hustle next to you and getting very poor results next to your lovely Sony.
That was good times.
You know, the benefits of long exposure and having a Sony. Yeah. So again, we get a lot of fungi up here.
I'd like to try with the R5 now, though, Lucky.
Yeah, no, I think you'd do well.
I might be back in the running.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't wait to see it for next year. I can't wait to see what the shot's going to look like off the R5. So been seeing some Astro shots already, and I'm quite intrigued.
Okay. Quick tech talk.
Yeah, so just going to say, so again, we get lots and lots of fungi up here as well. Big learning experience with this one in particular is when you post it to Instagram, don't do #shrooms. Because what happens is that then all of a sudden all the bots come along and start commenting on your feed and saying buy mushrooms, buy mushrooms, buy mushrooms, buy mushrooms. And so you spend about the next 6 months actually deleting comments off your feed from bots that have put on buy mushrooms. So don't #shrooms.
Do you go to the level of working out the species and things like that and learning a little bit more about them?
So I have with some. I mean, obviously this little guy is quite well known, Flying Eric. Everybody knows what that is. The stereotypical.
Flying Eric.
Sorry, Paul.
Flying Eric, is that what you said?
But Flying Eric. The AGERIC. So
Flying Eric.
Yeah, and that's the
colloquial name, Flying Eric.
Yeah, but it's the typical. It's the one that most people, if they're going to the compositors will actually put a fairy next to, and I saw a couple of shots this year of them where someone had actually done some really clever lighting underneath a fully filled out one, and then it actually composited a little fairy underneath it, so it looked like this really beautiful scene. Really going to work on some compositing work at some stage, but I did have a shot of, I think I actually only got it on my phone, of a very rare blue webcap, which we found on the Grand Canyon walking track up here as well. And when I showed it to someone afterwards, I only actually shot it on my phone because I was so exhausted after walking through the Grand Canyon that I just didn't even think to get my camera out and shoot it. But when I showed someone the phone shot afterwards, they said, that's a once in a million mushroom. You don't tend to see that one around. So
what's the main season, Jay?
Autumn. So autumn, after some of the wets come through in autumn, again, because we've got a lot of wet areas that don't really dry out, like in the sclerophyll forest where it's very dry. Where you get down into the gullies and you get a lot of the coachwoods and ferns and the mosses where the waterfalls are, you'll get a lot of fungi, and you get them year round sometimes as well.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering with the kind of a shorter long season, because it's pretty moist up there.
Yeah. I mean, we get autumn is definitely. I mean, autumn's the time the Flying Erics come out. They love to grow underneath the pine trees, so it's when the pine needles drop and create that perfect blanket underneath. That's when it becomes the perfect conditions for them to grow through. So you can see this is actually, I think all the ground litter down here is off a fern that's growing close by as well. So it's kind of that perfect conditions for them to grow through. But yeah, if you find any of those little damp green mossy spots, you guarantee you're going to find little bits of fungi popping up off the top of dead trees or fallen tree trunks.
Have you played with focus stacking and all that sort of stuff with these sort of shots? I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So this would have been a focus stack. That's
Yep.
why it's a PSB, because it was
Yeah.
A7R4 and it was big.
Oh yeah.
So that would have been about 5 or 6 shots, I think, taken to get the full detail of the mushroom in the foreground. I'll leave a little bokeh, a little bit of bokeh in the foreground and background there as well.
Yeah.
I've got to say, the 100-400mm lens is one of the best macro lenses for mushrooms I can find.
Mm.
It's a fantastic lens to use for that kind of thing. So it gives you that really beautiful.
Is it a dedicated macro? I've never heard of that focal length being a
It's
macro.
more just the telephoto focal lengths. Just
Macro. Yeah, okay.
But it's just because it's I mean, this is f5.6. It's got such a beautiful depth of field to it. It really accentuates the shot, in my opinion anyway. So it's I really enjoy using that as a macro. I think this would have been, this is just using the 24-105, and again this would have been a stack. So to get the actual log, and then about 4 or 5 shots to get the different bits of detail. And there's probably a bit of an error. Yeah, probably a little bit of an error in the stack in this little bit here I had to cover up.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, again, beautiful lenses.
Really interesting.
To be able to capture those kind of shots with. And then again, this is just a raw. So this is again using the 100-400.
I've just really stopped down there to maximize the depth of field.
Yeah, so going right through it, f36. Yeah. Just try and get the depth of field right across them. So, but it kind of really works. There was a very flat rock face that it was actually growing out of. So again, so one of those things in autumn, fantastic time of year to come up to the mountains. Not just because of the fungi as well, but obviously we have autumn colors, and I did actually have a shot out here for autumn colors. Let me scroll through my little film roll here. Obviously Mount Wilson, a bit of a favorite.
Oh yeah.
Famous gate at Beaver Gardens that a lot of people would go up to. And then hang on.
It got pretty close to getting burnt, didn't it?
Very close. Yeah. Very close in the fires. If you actually drive through Mount Wilson at the moment, you actually see where they fended it off on either side. The fire came in on one side, they managed to fend it off, and the fire wrapped all the way around Mount Wilson and continued off on the other side. So yes, they were very lucky to save all the gardens in Mount Wilson themselves. This is one of my favorite spots as well, up in Blackheath, just on one of the side streets. So you get all the autumn colors up here as well during autumn, especially if you get those really foggy, misty days. Get the fog misting wafting on through through all the colorful trees. So again, autumn definitely a time to be thinking about heading up here as well.
Just have to make sure it's not bin day, don't you?
Well, that's that thing. So we've had to change our composition on this particular street. So I think my original shot, which is one most people know me for, is the full width of the street. But on the other side here now, they've built an NBN repeater box. So it's kind of ruined the composition there. It doesn't look nearly as nice as it used to. So because Telstra have come along, or NBN have come along and ruined the composition for us. So, but still, yeah, lots of shots like that to be had all over Blackheath and certainly over the mountain at Mount Wilson as well.
It's pretty cool when you think about it, the variety, and because you in I guess in Sydney at least, the seasons don't change as dramatically as they do in the mountains. So it must almost feel like you've always got something to shoot, because as things change, you can move to a different area or focus on different things: fungi, wildflowers, mist and fog, and just deciduous trees and all sorts of snow. Yeah, it's a really good mix there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings me to what I was going to talk about next, which is the flora.
Oh yeah.
Not that many shots in here, unfortunately, which is, I don't know why I haven't got that many in here, but I think everybody probably knows what this is. Oh, look, it's a sunstar again. I don't know what it is about me and sunstars, but waratahs are aplenty up here at the moment. Spring has definitely come early. Wildflowers are out, wattle is out, begonias are out, the grevilleas are all coming out. So it's the waratahs seem to have arrived 3 or 4 weeks earlier than normal. So spring's definitely sprung.
I always thought that they were more November, the waratahs. Well, no,
but they're already coming out up here. So I mean, they're not in full bloom, but they're a lot further ahead than they would normally be. Also got a couple of different types of grevillea up here. I have no idea what it's called, but it's absolutely beautiful, especially when you get really, really close into the detail. And again, this is just the raw. And again, this is the 100-400 from a distance. So just all the little hairy bits on the bottom of the stamens on the grevillea. I'm not sure what that one is, the purple one, but it's it's growing all over the place at the moment.
Do you have a in down here in Tassie, they've actually got a Facebook group. I think it's the Tasmanian Naturalist Facebook group or something. And if people want an ID of something, they can actually just post it to the group, and there's always someone there that can get back within a few minutes saying what it is. So
yeah, there's a few ones. So obviously, I don't have any shots of them, but wild orchids. A lot of native orchids up here are coming out at the moment, so there's quite a lot of photographers around doing those. There's a lady up here called Sabine Hanich. If anyone wants to look her up, she's got a couple of orchid books, Blue Mountains orchid books, 200-page books of all the different types of orchids up here that you're finding up here. She's always very happy to tell you what something is if you're stuck trying to figure out what it is. And again, there are a couple of Facebook groups, but also a couple of my guide colleagues at Scenic World are semi-botanists. So you send them a picture of anything and you get an answer back within seconds. So so it's quite a handy place to be working, handy place to live.
Yeah.
So another grevillea here, it's quite a common one up here as well. This is starting to grow in a few places up here again at the moment as well. So yeah, very beautiful one curling stamens at the top, and then probably my favorite, which is the mountain devil. I've actually gone out and bought 2 mountain devil trees for my backyard that I'm trying to cultivate this year because I absolutely love this flower. And for some who don't know, the old railways at Scenic World up until 2013 were called Mountain Devil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they were named after this flower, which is the type of grevillea, which is absolutely beautiful.
Is it sort of endemic or only found in that area, or is it a bit more common?
It's not only found here, but it's very, very common up here.
Yeah.
It's not that common in other areas, but I think this was taken. So that, yes, it's a year-round flowering, but during the very harsh winters, it doesn't flower as much. You don't find them around as much. But I went for a walk the other day over to actually a fairly burned area on the edge of the Gross Valley. And already the flowers are starting to come out. The mountain devils and the areas, the plants that didn't burn in the fires are starting to come out. So yeah, quite happy to see the wildflowers starting to come through.
Quite stunning against the stark sort of burnt out backdrop.
Yeah, very much. I'm planning to go back this weekend and go and take some photos of it in better condition because it wasn't great conditions when I went out there this week. Let me just check. I've got another one in here, I'm sure. Which I may have missed out on. Of the wattle.
Oh, it's wattle's going off down here in Tas at the moment.
And no, I
Really?
don't have it, but but look, everybody knows golden wattle anyway. We actually were having a discussion the other day. So does anybody know when Wattle Day is?
No.
Wattle Day.
Actually, the 1st of August.
All right.
So Wattle Day has now already been and gone, and that's normally when the wattle is at its peak. The golden wattle is at its peak, and that's when we're supposed to be celebrating Wattle Day. Apparently, this used to be celebrated in the schools every year. You'd have to bring in your golden wattle, and nobody celebrates it anymore. So, there's one for the Instagrammers for next 1st of August. Get your best pictures of your golden wattle out on Wattle Day and post a photo of it. I don't actually have any of the shots in here, but anyway, so but yeah, so we've got lots and lots of the flowers, the wildflowers starting to come out now. I'm quite excited this year because, as you say, the burned areas where normally you'd have a lot of the Banksias, the Banksia pods, and they've got some little flowers and things on them. All of those Banksias are gone because they've been burned and they haven't recovered yet. But in their place, brackens and snowdrops are starting to come up, and begonias. So we're actually starting to see It's not they're still native, but they're slightly more invasive. But we're starting to see different species starting to flower in those areas as well, and that's pretty much a few months after the fires. So it'll be quite an exciting time this year to see again how that ecology has changed, and how different it looks from the past few years.
Mm.
And then let's talk about some fauna as well that we get up here. Everybody knows this guy. It's my favorite little juvenile kookaburra. And he still hangs around in the park at the front of my house here and still hangs around in the same tree. He's just now looking a lot bigger and fatter than he was a couple of years ago. Obviously, we have a lot of these guys up here as well. Sulphur-crested cockatoos. They love to nest at the edge of the waterfalls. They like to eat my garden furniture, which is a little unfortunate, but there's also a big campaign going on here at the moment to the council are actually going to start fining people for feeding them on the streets. They're actually putting signs out to say do not feed the birds because it's causing too much of a problem. They're actually becoming very, very aggressive because during the pandemic or during the fires, they lost a lot of their lost a lot of their feeding ground. So they've all come swamping into the towns, and the tourists have been feeding them hot chips and things, which are not particularly healthy for the cockatoos anyway. And now that's changed the cockatoos' behaviour because now they're getting quite aggressive towards people who are actually holding onto food on the street. So, so again, it's changing their behaviour a bit. So we're having to change the rules around it.
Mm.
These guys I love, Lewin's honey eaters. You only see them down in the rainforest amongst the coachwoods and amongst the vines down there. Beautiful green bird. Actually, I was very lucky with this one because he's actually come out really, really sharp with his feathers. They never stop moving. So they're like little finches, and actually they'll stand there and they'll just constantly move around. So they're actually quite difficult birds to photograph in a dark environment. Got the yellow-tailed cockatoos as well. Only one of 5 black cockatoo species that we have up here. So we have the yellowtails, we have gang cockatoos, we have black cockatoos, or forgot what the other black ones are. And then we have the glossies.
Yep.
So this is a glossy eating on a she-oak cone. He's got his beautiful red tail feathers there. Couldn't get him to flirl out and go and have a flight for me. That's kind of my that's my bucket list shot is to actually capture a glossy black cockatoo in full flight with his red tail feathers and red wing feathers showing up. But you see these guys around, especially during autumn. They'll sit at the tops of trees and you'll just hear cracking as you walk underneath them because they're just watching they're sat there munching on the cones on the she-oak trees. You'll always know where they've been because you'll see a big mess underneath the tree of where they've been cracking on the she-oak cones. What else do we have up here? Get a lot of crimson rosellas. Not the best shot. I don't know why I picked that one out of all the others I've probably got, but again, crimson rosellas, very, very same in their behavior. They just love to sit in the trees and munch on these cones. And so you'll see them tearing the cones to shreds and eating those. Now we've got a lot of very large crimson rosellas up here, much bigger than ones that you see down in Sydney, because you still see quite a few down there. But I think this guy here, you might not really be able to tell it from the scale of the shot, but he's a huge bird, almost parrot proportions for a rosella. So, but a beautiful bird nonetheless. And very bad shot, not processed. I might just quickly hop into develop on this one. And
oh, that'll come up well though, Jay.
Sorry?
That'll come up well though. With all that gold and green and red, when you edit it, it'll come up.
Not so well. Anyway, I'm going to zoom into him a little bit. That's a New Holland honey eater. Quite rare, and you actually find them out at Mount Tomar Botanic Gardens. Let me open that out a little further so we can see them a bit more. Again, they're very timid birds, very, very difficult to get a photograph, but very striking black head, very striking yellow wing and tail feathers. Again, they'll hang around. You can see this is one of those grevillea trees. You see all the grevillea flowers on there. They love to eat the nectar on the grevillea trees. So you see quite a lot of them around, but incredibly timid. If you get within 20, 30 meters of them, they're gone. And they'll be hiding in the trees somewhere. You can't actually capture them. So again, a bit of a bucket list shot of mine to try and get us to get one out in the open and actually get a really beautifully detailed shot of them as well.
Do you find yourself sort of alternating quite a bit now between landscape and more nature photography, I suppose, and trying to capture all the different species as well?
I do, yeah. I think working at Scenic World's done a lot of that to me, mostly because of these guys, because I've fallen in love with these guys. It's the lyrebird. Yeah, you can't really see the tail feather on this one, and it's probably the sharpest shot I've got of them though. But I mean, everybody knows the lyrebird and what it can do. And let me just I've got a video here. It'd
be great getting one like mid-call with its mouth open, wouldn't it?
Well, that's what I've been trying to do, and I've been trying to do it for many years now. I'm actually videoing a male with his tail feathers up over his head, actually doing the mimic call and actually capturing the whole dance. Now, I very nearly had it the other day because there was one at Wentworth Falls who he was just sat there for hours. He actually had the female running around underneath him as well. So we know there was basically there was a good time about to be had. And so we got the camera set up along the fence line, and they actually just moved just into the bush, so we couldn't actually see them. You could just see a little bit of his tail feather wagging over the top. But yeah, we knew there was a good time about to happen in that one because the female was already dancing around in there. Let me just try and open
this time.
Is the sound of this coming through, Luke?
I think so.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just rolls off a whole list of different.
She's so clever.
So just absolutely incredible birds, and the males there, you got his superb tail feather, or his two superb tail feathers spread across his back. There, his white feathers over the top of his head as he sits there singing away, trying to find his mate. And we found out not so long ago that it was originally thought that the females didn't have their own mimic, but they've actually discovered the females do, and the females actually mimic the predators of their predators. So when which will be happening now, apparently the chicks are already hatched for some of the lyrebirds down here in the valley. So when the females are protecting their nest and protecting their eggs, they'll actually mimic cats when foxes are around. They'll mimic cats when currawongs are around, which are their main predators. So, and the guys at Western Sydney Uni have done a lot of studies. We used to take them into the valley on the railway. They'd be dressed up in their hide suits, and they'd go and find a nest, and they'd sit there and film it all day and record the call all day. And they were actually getting taxiderm animals of the predators and actually getting them close and actually watching what the female behavior would be. Incredible study of what they found out, because they've literally got recordings of the females actually mimicking a domestic cat, which you would never think the lyrebird would be anywhere near to be able to learn.
Yeah, I was going to say, they'd have to hear it first to know how to mimic it.
Yeah, so it's incredible how, and this is the thing, is that they're still trying to work out how the lyrebirds actually learn to mimic. And they're saying it's a two-part process. So it's learned from their parents, and then it's acquired. So they actually go out and they actually acquire new sounds, which is why sometimes you'll hear them mimicking chainsaws and car alarms and things like that. There's actually, if you look on YouTube, there's a really interesting, David Attenborough's got a video that he did years and years ago of a lyrebird in a state forest somewhere in New South Wales who was actually mimicking all of the woodworking tools that the foresters are using. So, and it's absolutely down pat. It's a perfect impression of them. But the one we got over in Wentworth Falls, we were trying to get the other day, mimics 8 different native birds. So there's black cockatoos, he does whipbirds, he does bowerbirds, butcherbirds, There's a whole bunch of other birds that he mimics as well. And it's the first time I've heard a lyrebird mimic that many different birds in one go. So quite excited about that. I could talk about these guys forever because I'm absolutely in love with these birds. They're such an amazing species.
There's actually apparently there's some in southwest Tasmania. They got introduced down there, and they're
yes,
a pest. Unfortunately, because they scratch up all of the forest floors not used to being disturbed by those birds like that. So it's quite interesting.
Which is why they're so important to the ecology here, because that scratching. So you always see the lyrebirds walking around and they scratch up the ground, and it's very important here because what they're doing is they're actually turning over the leaf litter, and that's composting it down, and that's actually a fire prevention. So they're actually working hand in hand with the environment to basically prevent fires from spreading across the forest floor from all the dry litter, because the eucalypt leaves that fall off the trees don't compose down unless they've been turned into soil. So the lyrebirds are actually, that scratching is helping the environment. One of the studies they've done is that the male lyrebirds in their lifetime can move over 20,000 tons of leaf litter in a single lifetime, just for one bird. So if you think it's constantly doing that around those forest areas, it's going to really help with that fire prevention. But yeah, where they've introduced them into towns, you can see how they'd be a pest because they'd be turning over all the mosses. Things that are growing there as well, which you don't want to be turned over.
Yeah.
A couple of other things I got in this one as well. We had this one. Found this guy not so long ago. Tiger snake. That was down just by the cable car entry. We had some international tourists trying to shoot him off with the snake.
The tiger snake's different colours around the country. Ours are mainly black. That's very, very light coloured.
Yeah, he's very brown. Yeah, very brown. But definitely a tiger. We had a check. You can tell apparently it's the 5 scales: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That shows he's definitely a tiger, because we actually thought he was an eastern brown, but no, we could tell these days that the scale layout on his head's different. Yeah, he was hanging around next to the cable car entry for a long time, for a good few days, and some of the especially the Chinese tourists who seem to have this inbred fear of snakes. Every time they'd see him, they'd be throwing sticks at him. Go away, snake! Go away, snake! So we got quite a few of those around as well. Lots of copper skinks as well. Seen a lot of these guys move around in the fires after the fires as well, because a lot of their wet areas, they got burned, and so they've actually moved to different areas of the rainforest. So we're seeing a lot more of those in areas we didn't used to see them as well. So anyway, here you go. A selection of birds and the flora that are picked out. Again, these just pretty much all shots from this year. I don't think I've actually included much from the rest of my library out there as well.
Cool. What's next?
Yeah,
got some stuff from Wollemi as well.
Yeah, I think I said to you the other day, look, I actually don't have that much from Wollemi.
Yeah.
We've got the things we've done at Capity. Haven't actually processed any of those, to be honest.
I've got a few that I was going to share from Wollemi. Yeah.
I was just going to show this one really quickly. I mean, this is we did this not so long ago, didn't we? This is the glowworm tunnel.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Up there, and essentially and probably the one shot I have got is the other side of here, which is that beautiful shot of the Cathedral of Pines on the other side here. Cathedral of Ferns. Yeah, it's on the other side here. All the king ferns, unfortunately, succumbed to the fires. So that beautiful grove of ferns that was on the other side of the glowworm tunnel's gone, and probably never going to grow back, which is really unfortunate. But this, one of my favourite views from up there is Donkey Mountain, out in the Walgam Valley. Anybody knows the Walgam Valley? Just underneath here is Walgam 1-on-1, which used to be the Emirates Resort. It's where when pop stars come to Sydney, they get helicopters straight from Sydney Airport and they go to Walgam 1-on-1 for a bit of a break. So if you're ever looking to, go do some paparazzi, go and stay in there for a night, because it's, I was thinking about $600 a room a night.
Ouch.
Anyway, you go. That's the other couple of the shots I got. And Catty's in this one. Gratuitous shot of Catty sat on a rock. Pagoda country up at Dun Swamp, which I think you've got quite a few other pagoda shots, Luke, from up here as well.
Yeah.
you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I can. I'll put a few up as well. We're probably
Stop
running
sharing.
out a bit short on time otherwise. I'll
Oh, wow.
just.
I can talk, sorry.
No, you're right. Don't worry about that. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just going to pop onto this one here, and the first. So the thing that's pretty awesome about Wollemi is actually that it's got some really amazing canyons, um, and it's this is one of them here. This is
There you go.
that's all showing up now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Rocky Creek Canyon in Wollemi National Park, and I believe that the preceding canyon or the area around got burnt out, but I don't know if it actually got down into the canyon because it's quite obviously protected. You can see that the canyon walls here are quite tall. To get into these sort of canyons, you actually need to. Oh, it's a very good idea to wear a wetsuit because the water's actually really cold, even in the middle of summer, which is normally when you want to go canyoning, sort of January, February, March, around that sort of time when the water's warmed up just that little bit more. And also there's less risk of, I guess, flooding and that kind of thing as well. You obviously don't want to be in a place like this after severe rains or anything like that, because that's exactly how this canyon's been formed, from water rushing through and carving out all these amazing grooves in the sides of the actual canyon walls. But you also get this beautiful green glow of the sun bouncing off of all of the sort of green walls of the canyon, and mixing with the sort of yellow sandstones, and then if you're lucky you get the beams coming through as well. So it's always a good idea to try and time a trip in the canyon sort of around I guess midday, or understanding where the sun's going to have that elevation in the sky to actually be able to shine down through the actual canyon itself to create the beams. But it's absolutely stunning phenomenon to actually catch, and it's definitely I guess the highlight of actually being down in there. And you can also I've got a few here where I've got a friend also in there, and what was the other one I had? I think it's pretty much the same. Yeah. I had a different one there, but it's not showing up. But yeah, so that just gives you an idea of that. And I very much, I actually used to ran a couple workshops actually, where we actually took people down into the canyons and photographed them as a photography workshop, which was really quite a privilege actually. And I do recommend it very highly. It's definitely world-class scenery. So if you go with the Blue Mountains Adventure Company, there's a few other companies too that take people down in there, and it'll blow your mind. It really will. And it's only you can't believe that you're only just out of Sydney and you're seeing places like this. It's actually really quite accessible and quite fun to do. So definitely recommend that. So that's in Wollemi. I actually found this shot. I just downloaded it, but it's quite incredible actually. Just showing the Wollemi pines and how they were actually saved from the encroaching fire, and seeing how close that actually got. When I was doing a bit of research for this episode the other day, I couldn't quite believe it. It really does show how well the park staff were able to save them, because areas like this, and it's just incredibly close, and you can see some got singed a little bit, but it's quite remarkable. Also in Wollemi, we've got the beautiful walls of I think I'd say it's the world's largest canyon. You can see that's one side of it, and that's the other side. So it's actually ginormous. When you're actually down in the base of the valley, you can actually, it's quite a amazing feeling to be down in there. I think a lot of that got damaged as well in the fires from memory.
Yes.
Um,
So all of that area on the right-hand side there, there's actually people who were watching the footage at the time. The large air tankers were actually doing flying runs all the way over the top of that escarpment there to the right, and all the way across the top of those trees, dropping the red retardant on top of them. So a lot of that area, and just to further to the right of that area, down to Curraburong campground, has all been burned out. So is accessible again now, but yeah, it's very badly damaged down there.
Yeah, it's a real shame, but unfortunately, I guess most of the species there are gums, so that they will bounce back.
They'll recover.
You know, I'm going to have to also do something about those stitching errors on the sun flare there. It's always a hard thing to control in panos. And then, this is Jay and I run workshops in the Kapiti Valley, which is adjoining Wollemi National Park in that area, and you can sort of see the how these big cliff walls just sort of domineer the landscape there. Which is this is actually the accommodation that we stay in while we're there. Bit of a gratuitous plug there for the Kapiti workshop that we do, but it's definitely a beautiful part of the world down there. And there's also the abandoned shale oil refinery, which is where we conduct the workshops, and because of its proximity, well, there's very, very low light pollution out there. You get some pretty incredible skies out there. So I think that's you there, Jay, isn't it?
I think that one is, yeah.
Checking out the Milky Way.
I do the best selfies.
Yeah, you did all right there. So definitely also a very good spot out there for astrophotography. And I don't have too many shots actually of the pagodas, but it gives you an idea of what they look like. I think this is called Angus something or other, Angus Place, I think. And it's actually looking back towards a coal power plant back here. And so you can sort of see how close a lot of that's encroaching on this really ancient, quite amazing country. And a lot of it's actually under threat from coal mining, and there's some really big coal mines in this area. And as they dig underground, they actually cause cracking and some sort of movement of the earth around the place, and so they've actually documented a bit of damage to swamps and some of the actual pagodas themselves. So it's definitely an area that's under threat from those kind of things, and there's a few organisations that are working towards making sure this area is acknowledged for the special formations that are there, and some of the amazing Aboriginal culture and heritage that's out there as well. So really fascinating, and not terribly explored, or maybe from a photography perspective. I think there's certain photographers that have spent a lot of time out there, and I think there's a lot of pretty awesome spots to explore. I tried to do as much as I could while I lived in New South Wales, but it seems like it's almost unlimited, I think, out there. One of the locations I was speaking to Jay about was Hanging Rock. It's probably one of my, if not my favourite place in the Blue Mountains, actually. It's quite a remarkable formation, how this part of the escarpment basically juts out over the, I think it's the Gross Valley, isn't it, on this side?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're lucky, you get a cloud inversion. And in this case, that cloud inversion's really caused a nice amount of separation, and got a nice sort of pastels in the sky there from the sunrise. And the sun can shine in and light up the face. Another popular shot's actually in this area looking back towards the sun, and it's sort of in this gap here, which can look quite stunning as well. And there used to be a beautiful tree on top that kind of looked like this one, and unfortunately I don't know what quite happened to that, whether it was from a I'm really not sure what someone must have broken it, or it's used.
Sadly, it was a slackliner.
Yeah, it's used quite a lot for slacklining. You can actually walk out there. I've got a photo here with someone on the end, so you can sort of see from a sense of scale there how it all works. There's somewhere that they can actually tie on a rope, and they can actually also do a giant swing, and so they actually swing off the end. I haven't actually seen someone do it, but I've seen people walking out with the rope that they'd just done the swing. I think people have also passed away from accidents there as well. So it's a pretty intense sort of pursuit, swinging off of something like that. Again, like the 200-meter cliffs, like Jay was talking about, you're not really going to recover too much, especially if your camera falls over as well.
I tried to walk just past and right to the ends once, but it was so windy, I freaked out.
Yeah, it's it kind of works both for sunrise and sunset, but I would say it's more of a sunrise location just because you get the sun shining into the valley and lighting it up. And as much as I'd love it to be an astro location, I believe it kind of faces north, so it make this sort of composition, so it doesn't really work for astrophotography, at least from this perspective. I think if you're shooting in here and then looking out that way, I've seen some nice astro shots because you're looking east that way, so it'd be good for the eastern rise early in the season. But yeah, definitely really a world-class composition location in the Blue Mountains. It's a bit more of a challenge to get to, and also it's not a difficult walk, but it's a long walk, and obviously getting close to the edge here is extremely dangerous. So the other thing that you can do up there, this is actually taken right next to that lookout, is this is one of my favorite shots I've taken, actually. And I was actually camping up here to shoot Hanging Rock, but I had the plan of getting up early and shooting the Milky Way core over Mount Banks, which is the tallest mountain, as Jay was saying, in the Blue Mountains. I was hoping to get the Milky Way core directly above, and I was like way too late waking up, and then I was like, oh no, and the moon's going to be up now too, it's going to ruin the shot. But in the end, the moon's actually made the shot, so it's a bit of a lucky happenstance there. And then we had the cloud inversion in the valley here, with the moon lighting the inversion up, and then the Milky Way core above it. So and that was
what's the aperture that you got a little bit of a sunstar?
Yeah, look, I get that question all the time, for whatever reason, the lens was just doing it. I'm not quite sure. One of my theories is maybe because the moon was such a sliver of moon. It wasn't actually a very strong moon, obviously, for this situation, or for this sort of thing to work. So maybe because it was such a sliver of light, it sort of enabled that to have that effect. But I believe it was only f4 or something like that. I don't think it was anything too much stop down other than that. But it was the Samyang 14mm lens at the time, going back a little while. And so that was probably the best astro lens at the time when I shot that. So that's and then you've got the light pollution of Sydney in the distance there, basically. That's what that, and also the rising, sunrise was a little ways off, but that was taken at about 3 or 4 in the morning. And I tried to wake my mates up to come out and join me, and they just kept sleeping. So I just had all of that to myself, watching all of this cloud come in, and it was magic. Definitely one of those evenings where you pinch yourself and really enjoy what you're doing. I've only really got a couple other shots that I put aside. They're mainly waterfall shots, but I'm a really big fan of the South Lawson waterfall circuit, and so this is not loading for some reason. That's very unusual. Yeah. Well, that's okay. File system error. That's nice. Yeah. So that's this is Junction Falls here in the distance, and this is a different sort of angle of it here, looking more towards it. And I really love the wedding cake sort of style of the waterfall. Very, very beautiful waterfall on the South Lawson waterfall circuit. And also this is Adelina Falls, which is the first waterfall you get to on the South Lawson waterfall circuit. So definitely a great waterfall circuit to do, because it's not a terribly challenging walk, although it can get a bit muddy underfoot after heavy rain. But yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of the number of waterfalls that you see, and they're all very, very pretty waterfalls, really quite photogenic. And I'll finish up with a shot of Sylvia Falls, which is, as Jay was saying, you can see that this has got the very algae brown, the blackened surface, which will look now quite different to what it would be now. So
also before it became Simon Falls.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's no appendage coming out there either. So yeah, I'm lucky that I've been able to capture it before it had the sex change. So that's been good. Brilliant. Well, that's it for my shots. I'll just stop sharing, and I think it's probably time to wrap it up there too. Unless you had a few other bits and pieces that you were trying to get to, Jay.
I was just going to put a couple more things.
Yeah, go for it.
Bear with me a second. So I'm just going to keep grabbing the limelight. Going to keep everybody.
No, not a problem.
That's what you're here for, buddy.
Here you go. I've just grabbed this off Pinterest. So it's this is actually taken in April. This is someone doing that high line across the top of Hayne Rock.
Oh man, it's such a big drop under there.
So, and it is literally, that's a 180 meter drop straight into the valley underneath. So yeah, it's not a great place.
Oh, the German.
Where Luke was talking about those photos being taken is just kind of along the top of the ridge along the top here. So to even get around, to get on here, Paul, you said you've been out there as well. You kind of got all the way around on this very, very narrow cliff edge to get there. It's not yet. Gives me the heebies when I go around that. Don't like doing that one.
That's the composition that I was talking about in terms of facing east, and you can get a certain time you can get the Milky Way in that sort of slot. I don't think it's a particularly a beautiful shot, but it certainly works in terms of an astro composition.
I've seen some people get a really beautiful sunrise through there, and Henry Gold has got a absolutely stunning. It's actually in that World Heritage book that I've got.
Okay.
Shelf over here. One of the original views, because I think he was probably the first person to go down there, to be honest. But one of the original photographs of that there. It's just stunning in the color, and the way he's got the color out from the cliff edges or from the rock edges there. So the only other ones I was going to put up was, we were talking before, I mentioned before, new waterfalls pop up all the time. So this is actually taken at Scenic World, the Skyway coming in. I'll just quickly enlarge this one up here. And so this is after just a bit of a rain squall came through. And we can see these two new, well, they're not new, they're actually there all the time anyway, but after the heavy rain, we see these two waterfalls suddenly erupting from the cliff face on the other side, which normally wouldn't be there. We call this one Lillian Falls because it's actually underneath Lillienfels Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all urban runoff. So it's all the water from the road. This is the road that goes down to Echo Point at the top here. And so all the water that runs off down that road when it rains basically ends up tumbling on down the escarpment underneath. So when you get heavy rainfall like that, occasionally you do get to see those falls, new sets of falls actually coming as well. So quite a great, intriguing shot that I got to. That only lasted for probably about 10 minutes before it disappeared after that rain. So the Skyway cabin was just coming in just as those falls were still there. And the other one I was going to quickly show here.
That's a lot of folders.
You've labelled them really well. Like, that's something that I don't do very well. Like, I'll put the date there, but I don't go to the next level of actually doing the dash and then putting down the location, which I know I should.
I've been doing that for years, but the thing is that just because you know me, I'm a serial hoarder and I don't delete anything.
I'm the same.
And so then you go have to do that. And so I have to use Lightroom to go and catalog things.
But doing it by date certainly helps a lot, especially if your file names already have the date in the actual file name. Then you're pretty well good to look up where the rest of the files were.
I can't find what I was going to go and find, so I'll have to leave it there for mine anyway.
That's all right.
I was just actually trying to find a shot of a wallaroo that I took up at Journaling Caves a while ago.
Oh, right.
Because it's a particularly beautiful shot. It's really got his fur looking really nice, because there's quite a few wallaroos up there, and they were
Right.
after the fires came through.
Wallaroo?
Yeah, like a wallaby, but with a kangaroo. It's the size of a wallaby, but with a kangaroo face.
Yeah, right.
So
Actually,
yeah,
thing.
and generally brown as well. So they're kind of brown ready fur, but they're absolutely beautiful looking things, because they're little tiny things, and you wouldn't think it looking at them on a photo. You'd think they look like big eastern greys, but they're not. Anyway, I'll stop sharing there.
Sign off. Yeah. No. Look. Thanks so much for joining us, Jay, and it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show again, and share a little bit about the Blue Mountains and Wollemi and the areas that you really enjoy photographing there. And I guess if anyone is interested also in exploring the areas and not sure where to go, then they can certainly get in contact with you, can't they? And you'll help them out and take them around if that's their thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, you can gratuitous plug. You can come and find me on my website, Jaded Photo. I do run photography tours. I'm a licensed tour operator up here in the Blue Mountains. I've got licensed coverage for a lot of areas to take people in to photograph them. Some very unique areas that people wouldn't normally get to go and photograph as well. So come and join me if you fancy. Just have a look on the website. Come and see what I'm offering.
Yeah, so we've got the website in the description on the YouTube video. It's jadedphoto.com, isn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah, all good. So that's there, and you've got also a lot of your Blue Mountains stuff on Instagram as well. Yeah, Jaded Photo on there, I think it is. So fantastic. Well, we'll leave it there for tonight. But again, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back at the same time next week, and we'll have another guest with us. When we work out who that is, we'll let you know. And yeah, look, thanks again for joining us tonight. Thanks again, Jay, and have a good rest of the week. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Saggy.
Everybody.